ball lovers, ball knowers, Bucks fans. Welcome to another episode of the Bucks Beat. I'm your host, Monis Khan, the editor-in-chief of Bucks Plus, the official podcast network of the Milwaukee Bucks. And every week here on the Bucks Beat, we bring you essential insights and analysis from the people who know the team best, the people on the beat. And this week is no different, where we have two writers from brewhoop.com joining us, Fayaz and Jackson Gross, later on in today's show. And it's an interesting time for the Bucks. We've seen it all this season. Right now, they sit at 27-36, 4 games behind Charlotte for the 10th seed and a chance at the play-in to see if they can make a playoff push into the first round. 19 games left this season, and they have to go 14-5 just to crack 500 and avoid Doc Rivers' first losing season since 2006-2007. An amazing streak Doc has, and no surprise, that's why he's the 6th winningest coach in NBA history, and no coach, active coach in the NBA, has more wins than Doc Rivers. This week, this is not going to be easy. In order to get to 14-5, crack 500, make the play-in, they're going to have to put up a great performance this week. Tuesday here on WTMJ, tomorrow against the Phoenix Suns. Thursday, you can listen to Dave Kane on the call at the Miami Heat. A very important game against the Atlanta Hawks on Saturday, followed by a home game the next day against the Pacers. Definitely a chance to make some noise. They've beaten teams of this caliber throughout the season. But after going 8-2 just a few weeks ago, they have lost 5 of their last 6, and these are record margins in defeat. The team has never been blown out more in a season than they have this season in Bucks history. I grew up, as a fan in the 90s and 2000s, early 2000s, before Giannis got here, and there were some tough seasons. Giannis's rookie season, the team, I think, won 15 games. Never have they been blown out like they've been blown out throughout this season, especially in 5 of these last 6 games. But a recent win just a few days ago against the Utah Jazz featured a new lineup, featured size, and it featured ball movement. But most of all, it featured Bucks superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo. So can the Bucks build off of the success they found against that game? I guess the Jazz have kind of been the poster children of tanking. And so I don't know if it's a great reference point for the Bucks team, but an emphatic win nonetheless, the only one to speak of in the last 6 games. So this is what we're going to talk to Jackson about. This is what we're going to talk to Van about. Coming up after this break, we're going to talk about who have been the steadiest contributors for the Bucks. 2 of whom have just crashed onto the scene lately, and 2 all season have been really able to be leaned on. And so we're just going to talk about how the Bucks can build off of their recent success, get Giannis acclimated into this new look lineup, and get back to their winning ways. 14-5, definitely within reach to break 500, make the playoffs. But will the Bucks be able to do it? We'll talk about this and more coming up right after the break. Welcome back to the Bucks Beat. Thrilled to be joined by my bros over at Brew Hoop here on the Bucks Beat today. Fayaz, Jackson Gross, 2 writers at brewhoop.com. Definitely follow them on social media. Keep track of what they're doing because they cover the Bucks from every angle. They got a great team over there, a bunch of guys covering the team. And these 2 have been doing it for a long time. So, gents, they were 8-2. It looked very good. It was very exciting. They looked like they won the trade deadline. I said so out loud, and then they went 1-6, and the largest margins of defeat in Bucks history, both in the short term and in the season long. They've never been blown out this many times as they have this season, but 19 games left. Also, that 6-game stretch that we just survived featured 1 game that had a win. And Giannis looking good, ball movement, size. Do you think that can be a formula for them down the stretch to kind of go 14-5, break 500, and keep Doc's streak alive? He hasn't had a losing season since 2006, 2007. Van, what about you? Let's start with you.
I think that ball movement is that's the formula for success that they have needed all year. They've had some good halves recently. Last weekend in Chicago, I know they had 19 assists in the first half. They had 33 on Saturday night. So that was a big focus in practice, it sounds like, on Friday, from what I think Doc and some people on the team were saying. So it's clearly like that's what winning teams do, right? Like they're distributing the ball, they're finding good shots, they're creating for themselves, they're creating for others. And I think that's just a general formula for winning basketball. Whether or not they have the personnel to do it, I think they have a better group than they did earlier in the season, because Ousmane Dieng pass a little bit. Even Cam Thomas, if he's playing, he does pass a little bit, despite his reputation as a bit of a self-creator. And we've seen a lot of development, I think, from Ryan Rollins in the last month too, in that regard. That's one thing I know Doc has singled out too, like he's becoming more of a point guard lately. So that's just going to be the formula for any like successful team. And yeah, if they're going to do this improbable feat that you mentioned, that's going to be it's going to have to be one of the main tenets of it, right?
Yeah, Jackson, what do you think they can use, not only from the Utah Jazz game, but from that great play that they exhibited in February, that can kind of get them some wins and start building momentum down the final stretch of the season?
Well, if it would be up to them, I'm sure they'd love to play those same 10 teams that they played during that time, minus the Raptors and the Knicks mixed in there. But I think the biggest thing that I noticed during that stretch was obviously ball movement, but also the lack of turnovers. I think it was in that game after either Miami or Cleveland that last week of February. Ryan and KPJ were saying they really weren't obsessing about the turnovers anymore. And it wasn't as like, oh, we don't care about turnovers. It was just like they weren't so zeroed in on it. And like, you know, that idea of like the yips where you focus, like you can't do the basic things, like they weren't zeroing in on that, and they were just being able to play. So whether they can do it down the stretch and do this whole crazy thing and stay above 500, the biggest problem with this team is they've been so consistently inconsistent. Whether they had earlier stretches in the year, they would go stretches where they're passing the ball, and then they would go stretches when they weren't passing the ball. They would have great defensive games, and then they wouldn't have good defensive games. So there hasn't been a singular thing that has been consistent about this team other than the inconsistency and just the amount of injuries they've had to deal with.
And obviously headlined by Giannis Antetokounmpo missing 29 games, I believe, this season. But he's back in limited minutes and not playing back-to-backs, and he's going to be load managed certainly down the stretch, as he should be. But Kyle Kuzma, talked about how getting Giannis back is actually one of the reasons why the team might have stumbled over the last few games. And obviously, there's a few new players on the team. The team has kind of built an identity playing a little differently without him. But what do the Bucks need to do to get Giannis really making the most and making this team higher than the sum of their parts?
That's been an issue for the Bucks, I would say, the last 3 years, like not playing up to the sum of their parts. And there's several reasons for that, but it was just not an issue that the Bucks had prior to 2023. But as far as Giannis goes, I mean, there was a lot of like chemistry, I think, established during his most recent absence, which I believe was it was 15 full games. He got the injury towards the end of the 16th. But seeing how Rollins and Porter started to click together in a way that they hadn't before. I remember back in December, Doc talked about how he didn't like to play Porter and Rollins together when Giannis was not playing. Like, he didn't like to start them together. He liked to stagger them. But in recent weeks, he's changed his tune on that. Obviously, Porter is injured right now, and I don't know when or if he'll come back this season necessarily, but he mostly pointed towards Rollins's development as a point guard for why it's working a bit more, and how, when they're playing well, it's because the ball isn't sticking with either of those guys. So like we've been talking about, ball movement portends winning basketball, but with Giannis back, and he acknowledged this in that question I asked him, as Doc did, like when Giannis is in, there isn't as much of the problem with the ball sticking with either of those guys. Of course, maybe it sticks a bit more with Giannis, and now with Kevin Porter out, Giannis is having to run the show a bit more. Like there were lineups we saw this weekend where there's really only one guard out there, like AJ Green, or not even a ball handling guard either. And it's Giannis running point with some bigger players. The size is something they really needed in the last week, especially after that Atlanta defeat. That was something Doc specifically pointed to, as they just needed more size. But if Giannis is running the show, it's incumbent on everyone else to just not get out of his way, but not be in the way, I guess, if I could put it that way. It's like you have to not let the ball stick, but you have to be finding him and others in the right spot, especially I think any big, like getting them the ball on the roll, guys like Jericho Sims and Miles Turner. So, but Giannis has to do a bit of that too. So I think, it's just going to come down to ball movement, even with Giannis in the lineup. He needs to be a main part of that.
And we'll be right back here asking Jackson the same question on how to get Giannis involved, not only involved, but get this train moving where it's kind of what they went into the season looking for, building a 5-out with Giannis and really making the most of these specific role players they chose to play next to him. We'll be talking to Jackson and Van about this and more coming up after the break. Welcome back to the Bucks Beat. Thrilled to be joined by Jackson Gross and Van Fayaz at brewhoop.com. Jackson, we were talking about this before the break, but getting Giannis, he's coming back from injury. How does he start to fit in with these players on the team and really make the most of what's left of this season?
Yeah, and I mean, it's a little bit more difficult for him specifically because everybody knows that Giannis is such a rhythm-based player. He talked about that a lot after his first game back against the Celtics, that he just needs to get himself into a rhythm, which was kind of surprising that he was focusing more on that than necessarily like what the rest of the season looks and like and how to get into the play-in. But yeah, I think that, and the best way to get him involved is obviously sometimes you got to let him do his thing and get him in the ISO, but at the same time, you have to find creative ways to get him the ball too. And that's just, even when he's been healthy and in rhythm, that's just something we haven't seen a lot. So it would be good to get him involved, maybe in some lob plays, get him pick and rolls, just kind of get him back into the swing of things. That's the biggest thing, as someone who's had to come back from injuries, not to the same degree, but the biggest thing has always been to like just get yourself back in rhythm is the biggest part.
And two players that have really been ascending. I mean, this has been up and down season, but these two, the stock is just going up, 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 game after game. Ousmane Dieng and Jericho Sims. And part of what I find so intriguing is that their fit alongside Giannis. I want to ask you guys about these two. How have you evaluated their play of late? And what do you think about their long-term fit aside Giannis? Let's start with you, Jackson.
Yeah, I was particularly, once I got into more of a deep dive about Ousmane, once I started looking more into him, I was really excited about his fit with Giannis. Just seeing how he played in New Zealand, in the G League, in his limited time in the NBA. The first thing that always stuck out was his jump shot. It looks a little funky at times, but it's pretty. There's no truly awkward mechanics to it. It just looks smooth, and he's so good in the catch and shoot area. And obviously, you want a floor spacing wing outside next to Giannis. And then the other part of it was just his defense, like overall, and not just like one-on-one perimeter defense, but he can be a little bit of a help side defender, not only in blocking shots, but getting into the passing lanes. That's something he did quite a bit in New Zealand, and that's transferred for sure into his professional career. As for Cam Thomas, obviously that great start that he had where I think at one point he's averaging 19 points per game in his first 5 games with the Bucks. The biggest thing for him is, first of all, I appreciate that he obviously has the reputation as not the best defender, but he's not one of those guys who doesn't try defensively. He gives a good amount of effort and tries to stay in front of guys, try and stay in front in the zone. The biggest thing for him is that sometimes he gets a little bullheaded when his shot selection, and there are times where he'll just run to the wing and take a contested mid-range jumper, and it's there's 17 seconds or 15 seconds on the shot clock, dude. Let's move the ball around a little bit more. So, but if he can kind of do what he done a little bit more recently, we're trying to distribute the ball a little bit more and take the right shots, I think both of those guys, but especially Thomas in this instance, can be good long-term fits for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry if I said Cam Thomas. Obviously, he's been very struggling as of late. I meant Jericho Sims, but Van, I want to ask you about Ousmane. I want to focus on Ousmane here. It seems like he's looking for Giannis. It feels like he knows what his job is and how bad. He's really thinking of his role in regard to how to play beside Giannis, whereas other guys might be thinking more how to get their own games going. Just curious what you think about his fit long-term alongside Giannis.
Yeah, I think that the game on Saturday in Utah is probably a good approximation of what kind of player he is at his best on this Bucks team and next to Giannis, because that was one of the first games he's played with Giannis. He's been starting the last 4 games, and he's been alongside Giannis for 3 of them. He tied a career high with 9 assists in that game. And you look at his other really noticeably the games that have really stuck out since he's come to the Bucks, the first few, one against the Magic and then another against the Thunder, his old team. Though in all those games, well, at least in the Thunder game and the Utah game this weekend, and also Orlando last night, a consistent theme has been his passing. I do think he has really good chemistry. Talking about Jericho Sims, they have a really nice 2-man game already together. And Dieng can find him on lobs a lot. Haven't seen that yet with Giannis, but when Giannis is in, it's important to have a good secondary creator as well out there, because Giannis is going to drive in the paint. He's going to attract doubles. He's going to pass the ball. And then sometimes as that guy who receives the pass, you need to make the next pass. And on Saturday, Dieng was doing that a lot. I think, it's a bit easier when you have a guy like Giannis out there, a human battering ram, who is going to just create open looks for you, but it's also about finding open looks for other people. So he may find Giannis, but Giannis, I think finding him is really important too, because that maybe implies a little bit of trust, and it just shows that Us is in the right place, the right places on the court. But I think maybe he might be in the right place long-term as well. I think just from talking to him, I think he sees a real long-term fit in Milwaukee.
And it sounds like Doc thinks so too. He's getting a lot of minutes. This has been really wonderful. Appreciate my bros from the brewhoop.com beat covering the Bucks for a long time, Fayaz, Jackson Gross. When we come back, we have an exclusive interview with Doc Rivers on the Courtside podcast with Gil Klappa. That's going to be after the break. And if you want to hear more of this conversation with Van and Jackson, we're going to do an extended session on YouTube. You can watch us every week on the WTMJ YouTube channel. And we'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to the Bucks Beat. This is our extended YouTube-only session, so I appreciate all of our viewers hanging with us. For anyone watching on YouTube, we'll get to that Doc interview after this one last segment here with our Brew Hoop writers, Van Fayaz and Jackson Gross. And gentlemen, let's talk about Jericho Sims. Because he's a little bit of a guy who, for a while there, I didn't know if there was a role for a type of guy like this in the NBA. I mean, a real important role. I didn't know if a contributor like this could play meaningful minutes for a winning team, and that is a big who really can't shoot the ball at all, who doesn't have really crafty post moves, but is somebody who's running, baseline to baseline, can be very versatile on defense. What do you think about Jericho? I mean, one thing that I love is his playmaking abilities. I mean, this guy has had a few games with like 5 assists and just is able to make the right play. Seems to be showcasing some level of basketball IQ. Van, I know you brought him up, but I'm just curious about how you think Jericho could fit into the short, medium-term future of the Milwaukee Bucks. And that type of player, where you think that type of player fits in what NBA teams are looking for in 26 and moving forward 26, 27.
I was in the same boat as you not too long ago, wondering about not so much the archetype of player he is, but just specifically if Sims could stick. And I really think in the last month or so, he's found he's incorporated some new things to his game, particularly defensively. But we'll start with what you're talking about on the offensive side of the ball. Doc Rivers actually did mention his passing a few times this weekend, and he's not going to be like Domantas Sabonis or Nikola Jokic out there, but he is over the last few weeks, like he's averaging at least a couple assists a game. He's had a couple 4 and 5 assist games. So I think that's something we'll start to see a little bit more. But what I've been more intrigued about, I guess, offensively, I think his best asset is his rolling. Like he's a good screen setter. He's obviously big enough. He does get whistled a fair bit for illegal screens, some of which I don't always know if they are illegal. And it might be just a reputation based thing. So, but he's getting himself free for lobs a lot more recently. I think he's moving better on the court. He's getting to the dunker spot a lot more than he had been earlier this year. But the real reason I think he'll stick is just because of what he's done on the defensive side of the ball over the last month. I think he's proven that he's a much more switchable guy than we originally thought. Maybe he's a smaller center. He's very athletic. He moves his feet really well. Like he's probably the Bucks' best choice on like larger forwards right now, more athletic guys. Obviously, we saw that. We didn't see as much last night, but Paolo Banchero, Pascal Siakam last month, type of guys he's well suited to defend. So that ability that's made me believe, in him working a bit more, especially alongside Giannis. When the Bucks do run switch heavy schemes, which they're doing a lot this year, he's probably their best choice at the 5. But there's now I see more of a long-term fit, I guess, than I did before. And I'd say their second best rebounder too. I mean, his anticipation, his hands on the glass are very good.
Yeah, and Jackson, what are you seeing from Jericho, and how would you evaluate his fit as a significant role player for the Bucks moving forward?
Yeah, I completely agree with a lot what Van said. I'm going to take it another level with the offense. We were talking about with Dieng about needing that guy who can make the next pass. In certain situations on rolls, I've seen a few times where Jericho is able to make that extra pass and find open guys, whether it's on the 3 or somewhere else down low. And that's something I didn't expect to see from him. Like when you think like just casually about Jericho Sims, if that's your thing, that your passing is not one of the first things that's going to come up. So it was a nice surprise to see that. And then, I agree. He's been their second best rebounder. And I mean, we've seen guys in the NBA not be great shooters or not be non-shooters and still carve out a role. Now, typically those guys have been guards and not listed as a centers, like your Tony Allens, your Andre Robersons of the world. But with his ability to rebound and his ability to get lobs and do some of these other little things and take on the big forwards, like I remember like you don't want him guarding Paul George and those type of guys. I remember a few months back when they're playing Philly, and I'm just watching like, why is Jericho Sims on Paul George right now? And obviously that was just a necessity thing. But if you put him on a Siakam or some of these other guys, like that's a pretty good matchup for the Bucks to have with or without Giannis in the lineup.
And, definitely is a bright spot. Over the last few games has been very consistent. Every game you can count on him to be selfless, be a glue guy, be a connector, and kind of exhibit that style of play that the Bucks have been severely lacking this season. 50-50 balls, offensive rebounds, just being aggressive. Doc called it grown man rebounds that he's been getting. And just that physicality that the Bucks have really been lacking. Two guys I just want to talk about for a second for their consistency this season. It feels like a lot of guys have been up and down, but two players who I think are not really getting, I would say the respect they deserve for their selflessness this season and their consistency, Bobby Portis and Kyle Kuzma. Kuzma, I think, has been really, his teammates really understand this is like the definition of a team player and how he's been carrying himself this whole season. After being that first, second option in Washington, kind of just taking on any role at any moment. The DNP CD was the first of his career the other night. Then he followed that up, with an important performance in a win against the Utah Jazz. So, I guess my question is, and then I just want to say this about Bobby, is second all time in double-doubles off the bench. I mean, this is a pretty extraordinary stat, an extraordinary accomplishment for Bobby. I think, when you're talking about that type of consistency off the bench, people are always saying, well, I'm coming off the bench. How am I supposed to find my rhythm? How am I supposed to do this? Bobby's not saying that. Bobby knows his role, and he always plays his role. I guess I would like to hear you guys on how you would evaluate their performance this season, because Bobby's three-point shooting. I mean, the people have taken exception to Bobby's effort on defense, whatever it is, but no one. I mean, you can't really question the guy's heart. But curious what you guys think about how Kuz and the underdog have been in this challenging Bucks season.
I've always been thinking, in terms of when it comes to Bobby Portis, that he has been severely underrated. Like, yes, 3-point percentage can be a little misleading because, again, you got to factor in volume, but he has pretty good volume. He's taken, I believe, around 4 or 5 threes a game, which is near the tops of his career. I mean, he was in the 3-point contest. Like, that's got to show for something for that. But yeah, I just felt like if there was ever a time where had the Bucks decided to trade him at the deadline, what a pickup that would have been for some team, because there are times where the Bucks are, especially in this last stretch, the Bucks are down big, they're down 15, 20, 25 points, and the Bucks can just, Bobby, here you go, throw it in the corner, take a corner three, makes a corner three, Bobby get in the post, do a little hook shot, get in there. Just consistent offense, I think, is the best thing you can say about him. Yes, he's up and down on the defensive end, but he's been that way for the last 5 years in Milwaukee. There's no change in Big Bob on that end. And then Kuzma, I agree. It takes a lot to be able to accept a bench role when you've been a guy who was a starter. I don't know. I can't remember if he was a starter with the Lakers during that championship year. But a starter in this league, a 20-plus point per game guy, and be like, you know what? I'm just going to come off the bench, do whatever I can to help this team get some wins. And I think he handled the DNP CD with a lot of class and professionalism, where some guys may not have. So I think that just kind of shows the type of professional that Kyle Kuzma is.
It really does. And, for the season to be going the way that it has, it is really exciting to see, Kuzma Kuz and Bobby as veterans, kind of showcasing to the younger players on the team what leadership looks like in many different ways. The quiet or outspoken variety. And young players like Ousmane and Jericho showing that, they could contribute to a future of the Bucks. Because right now, I think the only thing that's really certain about the Bucks is that the future is uncertain. We don't really know who's going to be back. A lot of players have player options. Not a lot of contracts on the books going into next year. Not so many. And I just want to finish up with this last question, guys. I'm hoping that the Bucks go 14-5, break 500, make the play-in, keep Doc's streak of winning seasons alive, almost 20 seasons. He hasn't had a losing season since 2006, 2007 in a full season that he's coached, which is just really crazy. He hasn't missed the playoffs in over a decade. Bucks haven't missed the playoffs in a decade. So definitely want to keep those streaks alive. But for the occasion where the Bucks aren't able to make the playoffs, they do have this lottery pick, the worst of the two picks between the Pelicans pick and the Bucks pick. This could be a pretty exciting pick. It's a deep top of that draft class. People are talking about the first 10 players being potential all-stars. So it's very exciting, and you never know with the lottery. Like, there are guys who are going later in the lottery. Obviously, we know Giannis went 15th and became a generational superstar, NBA champion, the best player on championship team. One question I want to ask you guys is, out of these top prospects, do you think any of them? Let's start here. Do you think any of them could be the best player on a championship team? Because I think that's really what you're looking for when you're picking in the top 3 of the NBA draft.
Yeah, if the Bucks somehow find a way to, they jump up and, the Pelicans also jump up somehow, I think right now they're
the odds of
sixth.
That happening are pretty small because
the
Pelicans are 6th and the Bucks are 10th. Like, the chances of the Bucks being in the top 4, and they can't even get the top pick because of this swap, 4.7%.
Yeah. So, I mean, hey, we've seen teams jump up with less of a chance. But in all seriousness, if there is a way that happens, but even, let's just say, removing the Bucks aspect of it, you look at the top of this draft, honestly, between Darren Peterson out of Kansas, Dybonsta out of BYU, and Cam Boozer, I'm thinking Cam Boozer, I think, could really be a kind of that big 4 that could kind of lead a team in that way. I think he kind of has a little something extra special than maybe some of those other guys. I mean, we've seen Darren Peterson, he having some struggles staying on the court health-wise. And then you never know with strength of competition with BYU. So I think any of those guys could be really good players, but I kind of like Cam Boozer the most out of those 3.
What about you, Van? Who do you, when you look at these much heralded prospects, is there one that you think could ascend to being an MVP caliber player, and even a guy like a SGA, like a Jokic, like a Giannis, a proven guy who can get their team to the championship game and win that baby for that city?
I have to be honest, I haven't had much time to follow college basketball outside the Badgers this year, and I barely have time for that. So I'm probably not going to get I'm not going to get a good look at any of these guys until the combine in a couple months here. So I just don't know at this point. But I will say that there have been I can just remember so many times over the last 10 to 15 years, draft classes being really heralded for this kind of thing. 2019 sticks out. 2014, of course, a consequential one for the Bucks. And to an extent, I would say 2023, but that was more about, Wemby at the top. I think these drafts, a lot of people expect them to end up like the 2003 draft, where you had Hall of Famers in the top 5, and multi-time NBA champions and MVPs and all that. And I think a deep draft class doesn't necessarily have all kinds of those players, but it just has a lot of maybe multi-time all-stars, which is what we've seen, I would say, out of those two I mentioned, like 2014 and 2019. Not necessarily anyone who's developed into like a true blue number one option on a title team. I think just you don't see those players every year. You get those players once every 5 years, maybe. And you don't always get them in the top five.
And that's really what it is, because when you even look at, because the hype always is way more than what actually happens with these guys. I don't think the number one pick has won the championship.
No.
With their team. Like, I can't even remember the last time.
It was Wiggins was the last guy who did it.
As a warrior, then as the warrior, and obviously as the fourth or fifth, clearly a contributing factor to their championship, but not even close. Be an all-star player on that team, but still not to the caliber. And when we even look at recent number one picks, other than Wemby, Cade Cunningham, who's amazing, who is like is going to be all NBA, first team probably, deserves MVP consideration. When we look at even this great class of last year, including their number one pick, Cooper Flagg, Paolo Banchero, do you really think that they're going to be the best player on a championship team? I don't know. I think they might go star hunting and go get that best player to be, alongside these great. But are they the stars or are they the complementary pieces? That's what's so fascinating. I saw ESPN Hoop Collective conversation saying that AJ DeBonsa was going to be this generational change your life type of player. It's very interesting because we really don't know the answer to this question. I do want to ask you guys a question that I hope I know the answer to. I hope this is in the negative, but is there any chance that the Bucks trade this if they have a lottery pick, top 10 pick? Is there any chance that the Bucks trade it?
I think it's a possibility.
For help for Giannis.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility. It's going to depend on more where it ends up. It'll have to be a trade that's like finalized basically on draft day or shortly thereafter. But it's so if they're outside the top 9, let's say, right now, if the season were to end today, they'd have a 60% chance of getting the 10th pick. And I do think the likelihood of that being moved from that range is higher than it is down low, but it also depends on what kind of player you can get for that. Last summer, I believe it was the 10th pick was traded for Kevin Durant, along with, let's see, Dylan Brooks, Jalen Green, and some second-round picks, I think, as well. And you look at the kind of player Kevin Durant was like last summer. He's 36 years old, 37 years old, still a very productive all-star level player. And then you put together salary alongside that pick and a young player like Jalen Green too. That's the kind of talent maybe that pick could bring back. Whether or not that is available on the market this summer, that's a different question, because Kevin Durant, it was pretty telegraphed his time in Phoenix was ending this time last year. So I think it's not going to become clear until after, I would say, the postseason, where we see what teams, maybe have reached a bit of a ceiling, and like their core of guys, maybe they're facing an extension with one of them, and that player is a little bit on the fence about that or something, or tells that team flat out, no, I'm not going to extend here. That's, I think, the type of player, a star talent that you could see get on the market, but I'm not positive it's going to happen. So that's why I don't necessarily think they'll look to trade it. It's going to be more an opportunity-based thing.
Yeah, I think the idea with potentially trading that pick and obviously getting a guy to help out Giannis, I'm just trying to think of potential salaries. I mean, it's going to be hard to get some of those guys. Like I was thinking maybe a guy like a Lauri Markkanen, but just beyond how the trade rules are now with the CBA, the Bucks don't necessarily have the money to match that up and fit that all underneath. They'd have to add several other players, and they have a bunch of players not under contract that would help that out. So it'd be tough to get a guy like that. So
I'm going to disagree with that a little bit. I actually think that someone like Markkanen, that's like basically the type of salary they could actually get, because if you wanted to package together Bobby Portis and Kyle Kuzma, that's going to allow the Bucks to take back about $44 million just from those two. So adding a little bit more on top of that will be able to get you some of the players at the top of the market in terms of salary.
Yeah, I think the issue is I think he's at over 50 million at this point. So that's a little bit tougher. But anyway, I think overall
you can just add like a $3 million player and you get there.
Oh, okay. So maybe
he's at 46 for next year, so it would be no problem.
Oh, okay. I thought for some reason he was back over 50 with that max extension. So anyway, with all that said, maybe you do get a guy like Markkanen where the Jazz get another bite at the apple with the draft pick, and the Bucks get another all-star level player next to Giannis, and then you can trot out. Let's say KPJ comes back. You have KPJ or Rollins at the 1, and then Dieng at the 2, and then Markkanen, Giannis, and Turner as potential like supersized lineup. So whether that actually happens, whether that makes sense for anybody, I don't know. But I get for the Jazz who are looking to continually tank and get new assets, and I think maybe that might entice them to get another top 10 pick.
You know, whenever I hear these names thrown around as guys who could be available, you know, they're just, I mean, and you're not going to find them. It's very rare that these opportunities come around, but it's never that Drew Holiday caliber. Wow, that's the guy who solves literally all of our problems, and we will win a championship. Like when Drew Holiday on paper at the time that we traded for him, the Bucks traded for him, it was just very clear, like, that is exactly what the team needs. And Damian Lillard, I think, is also of that caliber of player. Like, trade whatever, whoever, you know, my cousin can go with them. Love you, but bring on Dame to Milwaukee. It's not every day where you can find players. And right now, whenever you hear these names like Lauri Markkanen, I think one of the things you kind of wonder is like, where is this going? That level of sureness and you know, kind of like that fit that you see in your mind's eye. When we all love to play sort of like armchair GM, trade machine, you know, aficionados, whenever we play roulette on the trade machine, it just is interesting. With the Bucks right now, it's just very unclear what the way is forward. Even some of the names thrown around, Trey Murphy, et cetera, you know, they're just not clearly the type of player that was sort of associated with the Bucks in the past. But gentlemen, it'll be fun to find out. That's what we're all going to do. We're going to find out where the ping pong balls, if we get to the ping pong ball time, we're going to find out where they land. And it should be a great final 19 games for the Bucks, win or lose, because they are sort of, I don't know, they have this opportunity in the lottery if things don't work out the way that they want. And I'm just grateful for each of you joining me today here on the Bucks Beat. And if you've been watching us on YouTube, after this break, we will be back with the Courtside podcast and Gil Clapper's exclusive interview with Doc Rivers. Once again, Jackson Gross, Van Fayaz, very grateful for both of you joining me here on the Bucks Beat today. Thank you.
You're listening to a Bucks Plus audio production on the Bucks Plus Network.
The biggest voices in the locker room, in the front office, and in the NBA.
Our guest is the head of the herd, the head coach of the Bucks, Doc Rivers.
You know, there's a way we can do this, but a lot of people have to be on board. And he got it done, which is amazing.
This is Courtside with Gil Clapper.
Our guest is Bucks power forward Pete Nance.
Earlier in the year when Giannis was rehabbing from some of his injuries, you know, I was kind of the crash dummy for some of that stuff.
your all-access pass to Milwaukee's team.
Our guest, Bucks General Manager John Horst.
I've always said it's our job to give Giannis and this organization the best chance to win an NBA championship each and every season that we're together.
Now, here's your host, Gail Klappa.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gail Klappa, and this is Courtside. The calendar has turned. March is here. The NBA season is in the home stretch. The Bucks, well, there's still a heartbeat. But a Wednesday night, a rough second half made the road to the postseason even longer. And when they turned out the lights at Fiserv Forum, the Bucks stood 5 games behind in the loss column for the 10th spot in the East. Tonight, we unpack it all with a guy who's patrolled the sidelines for more than 2 decades. He's one of the winningest coaches in NBA history, a finalist this year for the NBA Hall of Fame, and the head of the herd, the head coach of the Bucks, Doc Rivers. Doc, welcome. Always great to sit down with you again here on Courtside.
Good talking to you.
Doc, before we dive in, I want to congratulate you on being named a finalist for induction in the NBA Hall of Fame. This year's class will be announced, I understand, in early April, and we're pulling for you.
Hey, I really appreciate it. I mean, it's been a lifelong work, obviously. I don't think anyone does anything to be that. I think you try to do it to just do your job and win, and win as much as you can. I've been lucky enough throughout my career to be able to win most of the time, and so that's why I'm there, and I really appreciate it.
You're more than welcome, and fingers crossed, Doc. Well,
thank you.
As you know, the team was without Giannis for all of February. The Bucks adjusted and really performed well. But the last few games, bit different story. Doc, what's your read on the state of the team today?
Yeah, it's been a tough read all year, guys going in and out. Giannis missing almost half our season. Yet that last 15 games without him, we kind of, finishing one game above 500 without your best player is impressive. Mm-hmm. We had an 8-2 stretch, which was very impressive. And then now we've come back. The Chicago loss was a brutal loss for us. We were playing well, kind of lost ourselves, and we have yet to regain. Last night loss, I loved the way we played in the first half. I didn't like the way we played defensively. We were shooting 4%, but they were shooting 60%. And you just felt it, like whatever team came out with the most defensive intensity was going to win the game. And unfortunately, that was Atlanta. And it's been a script for us lately, these bad quarters, bad halves. And I think it's an accumulation of how the season has gone. I think when you struggle the way we've struggled with inconsistencies, when you struggle in a game, I don't think we've done a great job of fighting through it, and we did last night.
Doc, how do you fix that? I mean, I'm sure frustration starts to filter in. You've seen the ups and downs of NBA play for 25 seasons or more. As a coach, how do you keep frustration from building to a point where it really impacts the ability to win?
Well, you have to just keep fighting it, because at times you don't, and it does impact on whether you win or not. But, I've done this, like you said, for 25 years. I think I've had 2 losing seasons in my entire coaching career. And both of those seasons, I don't want to call them tanking. But you know what I'm saying. Right. And I've always had the ability to take teams out of this, and thus far I have not. And that's what's so disappointing to me, because we have a good group of guys. Obviously we brought in some new players at the end of the season, trying to fit them in. There's been so many changes, with trades, with bringing guys in and injury. But this is a group that has not found the ability to just hang in there. And listen, I'm the coach, and so I'm the one that has to figure it out.
Well, Doc, Giannis been back in the lineup now for the past 2 games. And gosh, just given the way he's attacked the basket, he sure looks like the Giannis we're used to. But just give our listeners a sense, if you will, of how is his calf responding after playing at game speed.
He's been great. I mean, he's on a 24-minute restriction, which makes it brutally hard. I think the problem we had, at least in the first game, and even somewhat in the second game, the entire time Giannis was out, he was unable to practice. So, you have some of these new guys playing, and we kind of changed the way we play, and now we bring Giannis back, and we're back to trying to figure out that. clearly you want him back, and clearly he makes such a big difference. But now, I love that we have a day off, which we needed. Then a practice tomorrow, so hopefully we can adjust some things and get us back rolling.
And, Doc, when you think about it, if Giannis is on a 24-minute restriction, that means he's not playing for half the game. Do you think that restriction will kind of stay in place for the remainder of the year, or at some point are you?
Well, as a coach, I can tell you, I hope not. I don't. I know people find this strange, but I really have no say-so in that. That's been taken away from coaches a long time ago, and I think it's probably the right thing because we're not doctors. We don't understand the guy's health, and so we have to trust our health staff, and that's what they recommended. They did tell me when they told me this that they hope that they can increase it within the next week or two, but it was not going to be a big increase.
Gotcha. But, Doc, your nickname is Doc. Wouldn't that give you some ability to influence?
I would hope so, but no, unfortunately not. As I've reminded people, it's just a nickname.
I understand. Well, stepping back for a second, as you know, some NBA observers say the Bucks shouldn't take any more risk and the team should shut Giannis down for the remainder of the season. I assume that was never in your thinking or Giannis's thinking. Your thoughts?
No, it wasn't. I mean, obviously, it's not in my thinking, but it's something you look at as, we really did not as an organization. It's not really been discussed. You take your lead from your best player, and our best player wants to play games. I will say this. I think the break for him, you think about it, he played in the qualifiers to go to the Olympics. Then he played in the Olympics. Then he played in the World Games or, the European Cup last year. So that's 3 years of no off time. And, this year he's had a lot of injuries. And so, all this rest may have helped his body. And as he said the other day, this may be the best he has felt in a long time. And that's the good part for Giannis.
And, Doc, you know Giannis well. I don't think tank is in his vocabulary.
No, it's not. And at this point, it's not going to do anything anyway. So let's go forward and see what we can do.
There you go. And, Doc, speaking of injuries, Kevin Porter Jr., starting point guard for the Bucks, was scratched from the lineup with a knee issue. What can you tell our listeners about KPJ's injury?
Yeah, it's problematic, Gail. I don't have an update. I can tell you I'm not I'm concerned. I'm very concerned about it. We will know more. I think we're going to do the regular maintenance and see if we can get on the court in the next 2 or 3 games. And then if things don't go well, then we may have to make another decision. So I'm just hoping they go well.
And was this a case of a swelling of the knee, Doc?
Yeah, and it's been swelling. I give him a lot of credit. He's been playing on it for a good week or two. And, the other day he woke up and you could just see it. There's no way he could play.
Yeah, sorry to hear that. Coach, let's chat about one of the new faces on the Bucks roster. Ousmane Dieng came to Milwaukee from the Thunder in Oklahoma City, and, man, it sure looks like Ousmane at age 22 is a diamond in the rough. Your comments?
He's going to be terrific. And, one of the things that I'm doing, as you can tell, is I'm playing him. I think he's ready, but even if he's not, and this is the tough part, we're trying to win games. I just feel the need to play him. I think in the long run, it's going to pay off for the team and the organization to get this kid ready. He has a chance, Dale, to be better than just a good player. High IQ, shooting the heck out of the ball, can put the ball on the floor, can make plays with his passing. And over the last 2 games, the silver lining is defensively. I thought the minutes that he played on Pritchard against Boston and the minutes he played defensively against McCullough, 2 incredible scores. He held his own. Those are things that we heard that he didn't do well or couldn't do, and he has proven that he could. So it's just been absolutely wonderful to see, and great kid.
That's terrific to hear. And Doc, watching him the other night with his shooting ability, See if you agree or have a different view. He reminded me of a little bit of a young Chris Middleton.
Yeah, he does. He's crafty, very similar to Chris in that way, knows how to get his shot off, has the in-between game he's still working on, but, he has that. So, yeah, that's a good call, Dale.
Yeah.
Maybe more athletic. I would say he's probably a little bigger, maybe or more athletic. But other than that, very good comparison.
Terrific. Well, another new arrival to the Bucks is a guard who's been like a scoring machine during his NBA career, Cam Thomas. But Cam, at least for the last couple of games, seems to be struggling, Doc.
Yeah, I don't know if he's struggling or we're struggling and trying to put him in the right position, And again, that's my job to try to figure out. It's a tough one because, at this late in the season, bringing in a scorer in particular is hard for any team. Mm-hmm. It changes everybody's roles. Guys are getting less shots. It creates problems that you like, but you have to deal with. And listen, Gary, he can really score the ball. I've had a lot of luck with guys like him, Lou Williams and Jamal Crawford, Troy Hudson. I can just go down the list of guys that I've had that I've been able to use very well off the bench. And we're still trying to figure out the right place and how to use them.
Makes sense. Winning's only been here a very short period of time, as you know, and we're seeing more minutes from another young buck, Jericho Sims. Doc, other than Giannis, he may be the best rebounder on the team.
Yeah, he may be our best rebounder, him and Giannis. He gets, what you would call grown man rebounds in traffic and brings them down. He's also our best roller, which creates space for the floor. And he's definitely our best defender at the 5 position. So very happy for him. His growth this year, one of the good things about this team, even though it's obviously the season thus far hasn't gone the way we'd like, watching Ryan Rollins play now to where he is, where he was at the beginning of the year, and then watching Jericho Sims just improve by the game. Then the other guy that has started to come on is Pete Nance. So we're playing a lot of our young guys and getting them a lot of great experience.
And, Doc, the ESPN commentators last night were speculating that Ryan Rollins could be in the discussion for Most Improved Player of the Year.
Yeah, I think he should be. I don't even know the list, Gail. You don't pay much attention to it. But when you look at where he's at the beginning of the year, where he was our defender and made some shots, to now being our point guard, ball handler, and creating. He had 11 assists last night. That's no way that happens at the beginning of the year. And that just shows how hard he works, how hard that our skill development coaching staff works, and it's been great for him.
Doc, I know you've been involved and really care about the Milwaukee community, and I understand on the Bucks' day off earlier this week, you did some work with the Hunger Task Force. Tell us about that, if you will.
Yeah. It was awesome. I love this community. Obviously I went to college here and came back here because of the community more than anything else. And the things that I've always preached, I don't care what your political preference is we got to take care of our kids. Everyone does. Yep. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, people who don't vote. It doesn't matter about votes. It matters about our kids. And we definitely tie hunger to education. And what we have found is one of the main reasons kids struggle learning is because they're hungry. And that should never be in this country. We should never have hungry kids. And so I got a chance to go all about middle school. Scoot went with me as well, which was great. And we just got to witness the good that food is doing for these kids. And it was really a great trip for me.
That's great to hear. And I assume it was early in the morning. You had to drag out of bed.
Yeah, that was the tough part because it was off of back-to-back, and we had to be there at 7:30. So if you remember, that was a game. I think I got home at about 12, finished film. I usually finish film about 2 o'clock in the morning. So getting up and getting there at 7:30 was not an easy task, to say the least.
I can imagine. Well, Doc, it's time to look into your crystal ball. 21 games, literally almost a quarter of the season left to play. As you look forward, how many of those 21 games do you think, Doc, the Bucks will need to win to make the playoffs for the 10th consecutive year?
Gosh, Gail, I was just looking at that number. There's no number because, unfortunately, right now the teams ahead of us are playing unbelievable. Charlotte, maybe the hottest team in basketball. They go into Boston and blow them out last night. Atlanta has made unbelievable trades, bringing in Christopher McCullough, and then the kid from Golden State. So that number keeps increasing. I actually looked at if we won 14 of those games, would we be back in it? And I think there's a possibility of yes.
Gotcha. All right. And again, a quarter of the season left, so as you know, a lot can change. And one factor, get your view on this, that could be a plus for the Bucks is the home schedule in March. We're playing a lot of games in the friendly confines of Fiserv Forum.
Yeah, I think that plus if we do well out west, that's going to be the key for us. And then the last thing is, having Giannis back, hopefully at a point he can play more minutes for us. And if we can get Scoot back healthy, it would be nice to have our whole team. Hell, since I've had the job, I don't know if I've said that many times. It would be really nice to have a chance to coach our whole team in a bunch of games in a row.
Yeah, it sure would. And finally, Doc, as we wrap up our conversation, what parting thought, what last thought would you like to share with Bucks fans as this season hits the home stretch?
Yeah, I just know it's been difficult for them too. I mean, everybody wants to win, no more than me and our coaching staff and our players. This season has not gone the way we hoped and that we predicted. There are some pluses, as I said, with our young guys and their improvement. But we are still committed to winning, and we're going to still try to do that.
And, Doc, best of luck to you and to the health of the team for the remainder of the season. You've been listening to Courtside on the Bucks Plus Audio Network. Subscribe today on Bucks.com, the Bucks app, or wherever you get your podcasts. Until the next time, so long, everybody.
Wow, really appreciate that interview with Coach Doc Rivers on Gail Klappa's Courtside podcast. Always enjoy being able to feature these exclusive interviews that Gail Klappa gets on our show. If you want to listen to them the second they drop, all you have to do is subscribe to the Courtside podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back here on the Bucks Beat next Monday, March 16th. Should be an exciting week ahead. Listen here on WTMJ for games against the Phoenix Suns on Tuesday, Miami Heat on Thursday, Atlanta Hawks on Saturday, and the Pacers on Sunday. 14-5. That's what it's going to take for the Bucks to break 500, keep Doc's 20 consecutive seasons of above 500 play alive. Doc, only 22 wins from passing Pat Riley from number 5 on the all-time coaching wins record. So anyways, a lot to look forward to this season. We're excited to catch up with you next week. Go Bucks, and we'll see you. Have a great night.